welcome back to the Safe Room, guys. It's your boy, President Shon Williams, back with another episode. Not having the best week, but we're gonna tough it through. You know what it is. But today I have a fantastic guest. I've been listening to her podcast. Let me just break it down for you guys right here, okay? So she is a city planner. She's also a content creator. I think we were talking before. She's also an audio producer. She's got all the titles down. So come on now. This beautiful, wonderful woman has been like doing so much, and again, I've been peeping her game. But to kind of like take a little saying from her, what do I know? What I do know is that this amazing person I'm talking about is none other than Chid Suzan. Chid, how are you?
Yo, can I just say, like, wow, what an intro. I like it. I like it. No, like, honestly, let me just clap for you.
Yeah, just
Because
like just like I gotta keep my guests. I gotta treat my guests well.
yeah, no, I really like that. I think like for me on my platform, I'm big on like hyping up my guests too and just, highlighting. So I really like what you did there. So what do I know? What I do know is I really, really like that. Thank you so much for having me, Sean. This has been great. Like, thank you for creating this platform that you have, the safe room. I've been listening to some of your episodes too, and like it's just been great. And I'm really happy to just see the grind that a lot of like Toronto content creators, especially podcasters, are really just on, like doing the absolute most in the greatest way. So thank you so much for having me. This is great.
Yeah, absolutely. Us podcasters, we got to stick together. I would say
Absolutely.
it's a big bunch, but people don't realize that like we have such a huge voice in like what's happening within the media, within our communities as well. So I mean, everyone talks about like American podcasters, and like fair enough, but like show some love for the T dot podcaster. Listen, guys, like we on the come up, okay? All right,
We
so
are. We really are on the come up. And I think that like, yeah, honestly, if we just keep at it and like you said, like stick together, I think a lot of times there's like some gatekeeping. There's some people who have made it to a certain point, but they don't want to tell other people how they made it. I think there's also some mentality of like, well, like I didn't have a lot when I did it, so you guys figure it out, kind of thing, right? And I think that can only get us so far. So yeah, no, I'm excited to see where podcasting will be in Canada, especially Toronto, in the next like five years. I'm
yeah.
excited because I feel like now people are seeing the money in it. People are recognizing Black voices. So now I'm like, you guys need to give this to the Black Canadian creators. We need to eat off this too. So
Yes, absolutely. Big facts, big facts. So I know I mentioned in your intro that you are a content creator, and like that's what we're going to talk about. Guys, this is a topic I've been holding off for a bit because I was looking for like the right guest to be perfectly honest, and I think Chid was perfect for this conversation. We're going to talk about content creators, basically all different types of content creators because there are different types.
mhm.
Basically, going a more of a critical analysis into the life of a content creator, like what is it like, and most
Mhm.
importantly, just how much of an impact we have. Because I'm not gonna lie, this is where like my little petty side comes out. I'm really getting sick and tired of people saying like, "Oh, you're a content creator? Oh, I bet that's like pretty easy, just kind of like couple posts there, just kind of talk about this. Guys, it's a full out job. Like, listen, like I'm surprised like I'm not being compensated for the stuff I'm doing. Like, bro.
This is what I say, like, and I think it's because as a society we're so used to consuming content for free that it like, blows people's minds when you start asking them like, okay guys, sign up to my Patreon, sign up for this, like, because this is work. But because
Mhm.
like when you look at a newsletter, it's been free. When you look at someone's tweet, when you look at a post on Instagram, it's free, and you can't really like connect the dots on how to pay someone for that. It's starting to like, people are starting to be like, wait, I have to start paying people for tweets, I have to start paying people for this. It's like, as a content creator, I'm like, yeah, because they're working and their thoughts and their work have value. But then as a consumer, I understand it because it's like, oh man, how many tweets am I going to pay for? And then that's when you start
Right.
having to be selective to make sure that what you're paying for is actually of value. So
Mm.
it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be
Yeah.
interesting.
Listen, guys, we may be here for a while. Usually, I like to keep like my episodes like 40 to 50 minutes. I legit don't know what's about to happen today, but hey, we
Yeah.
gonna rock with it. We gonna rock with it. But before we get into that, I mean, we have Chid here.
Hmm.
You have your podcast, but what do I know podcast? I want to know more. Well, actually, I know a little bit, but my audience, like, listen, guys, listen. I have a bunch of podcasts I listen to because I feel like as a podcaster, I gotta support my people. I gotta support my people. When I found Shit's podcast, man, I don't know what it was, but it's just like, yo, anytime there's a new episode, I'm there. I'm dropping anything. Like, I don't care if I'm in the middle of a midterm, I'm doing something else. I'm like, listen, this is like my moment to just like relax and just listen to her. So yeah, I
Wow.
mean, shit, I want to know more. The people want to know more. So I definitely want to take the time to just break down your podcast. So I just want to ask the first question. So like, why do you felt it was important to start, your platform, especially with the purpose of like, but what do I know? Because you explained it a couple times of what the concept or the meaning behind it is. So maybe you can just go a little bit more into depth into terms of like why was it important for you to establish this in the first place?
Absolutely. So, I want to say like when I was younger, my mom always told me like, you have a really cool voice for radio. I see you doing like something in that realm, like having conversations and stuff. And when I was younger, I was a little bit of like a talkative. I love talking. I love having conversations. And then as I grew up, I feel like realism kicked in, and it's like, oh, like what are you gonna go to school for in university? And I was a little bit confused. I wanted to go for law, and then I had a teacher who recommended, okay, why don't you do urban planning? And that way, you can make an impact through your work. You can still plan communities and cities and stuff. But
Right.
if after that you want to go to law school, you can do that, right? So I got in the field and like I'm practicing and it's going well, but I'm not able to like flex that creative muscle that honestly I didn't even really know that I had.
Mm.
So then the pandemic happened and okay, I wanted to start a podcast, but I didn't really know. So I started listening to a bunch of Black podcasts, everything from the read. I just started listening to a bunch from like educational to just entertainment. And then I was like, I think I want to do this. I think I want to start my own podcast. But then finding a title was really hard because I was like, okay, I want it to be, do I want it to have my name? I don't know. Like, so I was kind of thinking and shopping ideas and stuff. And one day me and my sister were doing something and we were talking to each other and we both said, oh, but what do I know? And then my sister was like, wait, that would actually kind of be a cool name for your podcast. And I was like, okay. So then I sat on it and I was like, actually, but what do I know? And then I was like, okay, there are a couple ways to flip this. It could be a, but what do I know? So, like, what do I really know about this topic? Let me bring a guest on to explain more. It could
Mhm.
be a, but what do I know sarcastically, which is kind of where I'm going with it now is it's that sarcastic affirmation for Black women and like other people of color that like, okay, we often are treated like we don't know anything or we're shy about it. Like it's a title that affirmed my journey. Like when I started urban planning with like no representation of Black people in the workplace, in the field in general, and I was like, man, like how can I do this? How are my ideas gonna get looked at, right?
Right.
How am I going to make this impact? What do I know? Kind of thing. So after kind of like reflecting on that phrase, I was like, dang, this is something that we often act like we may not say, oh, what do I know? But we act like it. Like I think sometimes we like minimize our light and we do a lot. And I want it to be a space where, yeah, like we come and share our stories and share that knowledge that we have. So yeah, that's kind of how it started. That's kind of how it started.
Well,
Thank you for letting me share that.
yeah, no, for sure, and obviously, like sometimes your best like things or ideas kind of comes from like the most random conversations, So like, I totally get it. And again, I find it really beautiful of like just how it's phrased as, but what do I know? How it kind of expands on the simple fact of like, there's again, you mentioned the attitude. We kind of like act in a way where like oh, but what do I know? But we never really say it out loud because sometimes we don't really like, question ourselves based on the certain knowledge that we've obtained or we're trying to learn as well. It's kind of like, oh, it's like, oh, I'm aware about this. I've been in situations where it's like I'm in a conversation and I have like no clue what's going on, but I try to like act like, oh yeah, like I see what's up and like I understand what's going on. But truly it's like I don't. But it's like, why aren't you afraid to kind of just express that? Like, why aren't you afraid to just let them know, like, hey, look, I don't know this much. Can I know more? Is that cool with you? Can we have an open conversation about this? And I kind of like how your podcast is like a representation of that, kind of breaking down on those different elements of like, hey, like it's okay if you don't know that much or, know little. Because that's what we're here for, to kind of like
Exactly.
have these conversations and have an understanding on
Exactly.
these things as well. So like it's a
Exactly. And
beautiful concept, it's a beautiful like theme overall.
yeah, and I think even the way that like like what you just said, I thought about it, but I never really dug that deep. And that's a really cool thing is like some people have come and like told me what do I know means to them. So right, like I'm like, this is so interesting. Like I had a friend who was like, I really like it because when you have your guests, those are topics that maybe you don't know too much about. And I'm like, yeah, that's part of it too. Like, is that like what you just said, that whole idea of like, let me bring someone on who knows a little bit more so the listeners can also be engaged and stuff, right? And then, the whole sarcastic idea of like, no, like we know a lot, so let's showcase that we know a lot. So people have kind of come to me and said like, this is what this means to me, this is what this means to me, and like it's just really cool to see how people took that phrase and like interpreted it in their own way too. So yeah.
Right. Hey man,
Yeah.
like you should be proud about that when people are able to like take something that you done and kind of like say, "Hey, I was motivated by that, and it's kind of helping me." That's great. I
Mm-hmm.
I know when I started my podcast, when I started to say from, I just like, "Hey, it sounds cool." That's it. I had no idea of like what was I going to like be the representation or the symbol behind it. And like eventually it grew on me where like, hey, I want to establish like a space where people are able to kind of like share their opinions without feeling judged or ridiculed. Like the actual term of like a safe space in a way, a safe room. But also like provide a platform where people are able to kind of share all the stuff that's happening within the community, or they have a business or a brand, hoping to connect my audience with their audience. It's kind of like a
Mm-hmm.
networking opportunity in a way of how I perceive things. I felt like that was my directive once I kind of focused in on my podcast.
Yeah, and I really like that concept. I know when I asked you, when you said, yeah, like the safe room podcast, that kind of stuff, I was like, what does the safe room mean? Because sometimes I'm wary of people who like have podcasts and name and stuff like that, and they want to use that name to like come and like, for lack of a better word, like talk shit or just like,
No,
you
yeah,
know,
just
let the lips be a little loose and say some things that are not really, So I was like, man, what type of safe room is this? But then when
no,
you
like,
explained it, I was like, amazing. I love that. I
it
love
was
that.
hilarious because again, like you were like the only person who thought that. Everyone just like, oh, what does it mean? Like no one ever thought like, yo, are you talking like some like deep, like some controversial shit? Like, are you like going
Yeah.
in? It's like, listen, like I am a person that's like I like to like think on both sides of the spectrum. I don't want to pick one over the other and say like, "Oh, you're wrong," this and that. Don't get me wrong, I have my
Yep.
moments, but it's like that's not my premise at the end
Mm-hmm.
of the day. It's
Mm-hmm.
just I want to have like that open conversation where it's like, let me listen to you, you listen to me, and then we can just like go from there. Even though I may not agree with you at the end, it's like, okay, I hear where you're coming from, but you were the first person to think like that. It actually made me laugh. I was like, wow. Like, is that what I'm doing? Because like my biggest worry was this. I'm like, okay, the safe room, and I thought the safe room, the shade room. I'm like, I hope they don't come for my ass. Like
Uh,
guys, listen. I love the shade room. That was never my intention. I'm not trying to like steal their shit or
yeah, to
anything.
still your well, they'll be all right. I know we'll get a little bit into this. There's some people who start podcasts. Like, I guess it's more on like the hobbyist side. They don't really have a certain like place they want to take it, and a lot of the content and opinions of the podcast are not really like correct.
Mm.
Like I don't know. I don't have a name off the top of my head, and I don't really want to name name names. Still want y'all to keep your listeners, but it's just like sometimes when you listen to podcasts and it's just the content just revolves around what do you bring to the table, who's gonna pay for the first day, da, 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 like all that kind of stuff. So I'm just like, man, if that's what you guys are gonna talk about, please don't invite me. Like, like
No, I totally get it. So
yeah.
yeah, kind of moving on to the next question. I just want to know
Mm.
like your process for like your episodes and everything, because I know everyone has like a different process of how they want things to be structured, how they want things to be laid out. Like what have you kind of learned from your experience in terms of like the different, approaches that you took? And are you feel like, okay, you know what? I have a good rhythm, and I feel like this is how I want to keep moving like forward, or it's like you're still learning and it's like, you know what, like even though I'm great, I want to be like better than great. I want to be like excellent. I want to be phenomenal. you know Maybe just like break that down a bit for me as well.
For sure. So yeah, when I first started last year, August, I dropped the trailer and then like, obviously like when you drop something, there's excitement. People, your friends will support you. People who maybe are like friends of your friends will start to like be like, oh, okay, like you have this cool project, cool. And then I think I put out like 2 episodes, then put out one in September. So I was doing like bi-weekly, I was trying to do because I work full time and like pumping out stuff on a weekly basis is just a lot for me right now, especially because like everything is on my own. So I don't know
Mhm.
how people that do this stuff weekly, and then also yeah, and you're in school too, and I'm sure that you do other things. Like
I
we will talk
I'm
off the
working
mic as
2
to
jobs at the moment right now. So
we will talk when this episode's done. Yeah, so I started dropping episodes, told myself, okay, let's try and do bi-weekly. And then this is where like I clearly didn't know how much work would go into this. Like I knew it was work and I was ready to put in the work, but I just didn't really know. And what I also didn't really understand was the learning. Like if you want to be really good at something, and that's me, like I feel like whatever I do, I try to be really good at it, you're gonna need the time to learn. So if you sort of go back to like season one, my like previous episodes,
mhm.
you see that like I think there's an episode in like October, and there's one, there are two in October, one in November, one in December. And the reason for that is because in that time I was teaching myself how to edit. So I couldn't really like there are episodes that I had recorded that did not make it because like I would mess up like editing on like GarageBand or Adobe Audition that I use now. So there was like a Thanksgiving episode I had recorded with a friend, didn't make it because I started pressing too many buttons, like voices started changing on me. I was like, bro, what is this? Like I'm like, okay, guess this is not making it out. On to the next one. So it kind of became like a process of trial and error. And then after I put the last one out in December, I gave myself like the holidays to relax. January, I sort of set up a studio space in my basement. Then I started learning like okay, I started watching like YouTube videos, learn how to edit, learning like the importance of like an intro and outro, like, and just also like from listening to the podcast, like hearing like okay, this is their structure. Like it doesn't have to be like very rigid, but at least have a structure so like you can talk about maybe like current affairs and your opening and then get into like the main topic, which is what I the model that I chose because I wanted guests to see the side of me that liked music, that liked to talk about pop culture a little bit, but then we can still get into like our main segment. So I started learning, I started like researching that kind of stuff, started seeing even like, okay, like YouTube versus podcasts, like why do people watch YouTube versus why do people listen to podcasts? And then even like, because I'm not gonna lie, like it would be nice to be compensated for this. So like I also researched like, okay, where can the money come from? Right. So
Yeah.
yeah, I kind of just like researched all of that. And then in March I was like, when I started putting out episodes again, what I also did is from January to February I did like a content plan. So I talked about okay, like what topics do I want to talk about this season. Also like reached out to like on Instagram. I was like, okay, hey guys, like what topics do you guys want to hear? Got some really good feedback. And then I reached out to guests and I started pre-recording during like my seasonal break, like, okay, what direction do I want to go next with the podcast? So with that, I pre-recorded a bunch of stuff, and then now it's like I'll have like maybe two on hand that I'm editing in
Right.
anticipation for the date to the release date, and that has helped me be consistent bi-weekly this season. And so from like March to now, it's just been like bi-weekly episodes. I think I took a little bit of a summer break because everyone's outside, things are open, Caravana and all that. Like, let's have some fun. And then we'll come back
Yeah.
September and then do bi-weekly again from September. So I think I found a rhythm. I think that for people who also want to do podcasting like seriously, it's also important to look at it as a business because that's what
Right.
it is. Like it's an entertainment media business. Like even the way that you reached out, like you reached out to me, you had a clear email outline. That's the same way that when I'm reaching out to guests, email outline, are you okay with this? This is what we're going to be talking about. Let me know if there's anything you're not okay talking about. Like, I think that's where you learn that whole like email etiquette, how to be
Mhm.
professional, what it's, because things happen. Like you have guests, like I had a guest who was like, I have a lot going on, sorry, I got to cancel on you. And I was like, dang, like that was the guest I was looking forward to. Someone else was like,
Mm.
okay, I'm moving, I'm doing this. Like, can we push it back? So I think thinking of it as like something that you enjoy, that you're passionate about, but also still taking yourself seriously. Because if you don't take yourself seriously, not gonna lie to you, your guests may not take you seriously. Like,
Facts.
I-
Facts.
yeah, like I've had guests come on. Like I had two guests that I was interviewing at the same time. They sort of like had me go through their PR, and I was like, okay, dang, like I got to go through the PR. So I went through the PR. Then the PR connected me, and I usually like to like for guests that are not too familiar with the fact that like a podcast is like recorded audio and not live, I like to just meet them beforehand and like we'll do a quick like 10-15 minutes like chat on Zoom or whatever, and just I'll meet you. We can just quickly talk about it. I'll tell you what you need. Like you just need to have headphones with a mic, be in a room that's like quiet. Cause I had to learn these things. Like I've had people who like your family's talking in the background and you're trying to record a podcast. Like that's not how this works. So sorry, you know? So
Oh my
being
gosh! Before you even continue, I think everyone
yeah.
could resonate. There was even a moment I had a guest on, and I think my mom was in the background, and I thought I edited out until the same guest was like, "Yo, like, dude, like, listen, like, you're my bro, but like, you do realize there's like a part where you're like your mom's still in the cut." I'm like, "Are you serious?" Like, yeah. I'm like, I was so embarrassed, but at the same time, I was like, it's a learning experience. It's just like shit, because like you
Exactly.
were
Cause
even
it's
talking about.
also hard.
Right, you were even talking about like, there may be issues with audio editing. I'm being honest right now. The internet right now is acting up and like I feel like I'm cursed. I don't know what it is. Like every time I'm about to click record for this, the internet just messes with me. But at any time it's like I'm doing absolutely nothing. It's fine.
It's fine. And then once you hit record, that's when everyone wants to get active in the house. The internet is like wobbly a little bit.
It's like leave me
Yeah.
alone. Let me do my
Exactly.
stuff.
Right? So that's why like I think it's just important to like, do what you can and then also communicate that with your guests. I'm like, hey, if there's anything that you want me to cut out, cut it out. If you need a break to use a washroom or someone comes in your room or whatever, I'll cut it out. Like if our internet cuts out, we'll do our best to reconnect. Hopefully we have the file saved. So like I've had to sort of learn from experience like to just have backup plans for things like that and to tell people like okay this is my plan, but if things don't work out then we'll be flexible and like pivot and stuff. So
Right. Well
yeah, that's kind of been my process so far.
Well, that's really good. It's great that you have like everything like set in order. It's the same for me. Like when I first started off, like I was not like the best in terms of like audio editing. It was kind of like, hey, I was using like Odyssey at the time, and it was just like I could only do so much, and I'm like, okay, I need to work with something else. So then I got Filmora, and like that's where it's like, okay, now I'm able to kind of like understand better in terms of like the glitches and everything. And another thing I did too as well, like I got a Zoom subscription, and it allows you the option to have like separate files for each of your guests. So it's like there was moments I remember it was like there was like glitches and stuff, and I'm like, where is that coming from? Like sometimes I speak and it's like the feedback would be like super like sensitive, and then once I realized
Yeah.
when I looked at the separate files, for some reason those like sensitive wave patterns were like bouncing off to the other participants' file, and I was able to cut it out. And then when I played it back, I was like, oh my gosh, like did I just break through? I was like, I think it felt like a crowning achievement at the time. I was like, wow, like
Yo,
there's
when you're
some
editing and you figure a way to remove some like annoying noise or something that was happening, it's like like
it,
you just feel so good.
right. It's like, yo, listen, guys, I made it. All right, nothing else matters. I made it.
I'm telling you, like it feels so good. Like, and that's why for my first season, like I just wasn't as consistent because and maybe this is, if you're a podcaster, you can maybe learn from this and do a lot of the prep beforehand because then that will just save you and it'll help you be more consistent. But I was like for that first season, I was really learning as I go. Like I was whoa, like when I tell you even like the types of mics, like knowing like okay, if I want to have two people in the same room, it's better to use a dynamic mic so like
hmm
sound doesn't bleed into each other, right? Just even understanding like room like dynamics, like the essence of like having a room that has a lot of things to absorb so it makes your sound rich, like just like all these things that I'm like wow, I took this for granted like when I'm listening to a podcast or watching a YouTube channel. And no, like it's work and like it's
it's a
taken
lot.
me, I think I'm now like a year and like 4 months in from when I first launched that first episode, and it's now that I can say like I'm comfortable, I have a rhythm, I have a pattern, and it's just sort of like, let's go from here and gradually get better. So it takes time to like get into it. Like your first is not going to be your best. So
Right.
just start.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Just one more question before we kind of get into like the main discussion.
Hmm.
So I was checking your Instagram and I noticed your name is trademarked. First off, round of
S-
applause for
So I'm
that.
yeah. So okay, not officially. I'll say it on here. I put that TM to ward off people who may also be attracted to that name while I'm going through the process. So it's not completed
Okay.
yet. Right? I think there's actually a difference. I think if the emoji or the TM is a little bit smaller, it means that it is. Mine is a little bit bigger, so it's like going through the process. Um I am like trying I'm going through the process of trademarking it in Canada and the US, but it is expensive.
Oh man, listen.
So
I,
it's
I I
expensive.
know what you mean by that. So like I'm part of like a student led initiative called Black Brilliance. It's
Mm,
basically the whole point of it. We try to host like conversations, workshops that highlight the accomplishments, but also the struggles of Black youth through student advocacy. It's something we've been doing for like 5 years, and like we want to expand on it. So there was a time like, okay, let's get a trademark, and obviously like this was us a couple years ago, but still we were like, oh, this is gonna be like super fun and super cool. Like, oh my god, we're gonna have a trademark. The process is super long. The fees are ridiculous, and like they have to do a whole filing search just to make sure, like, okay, like let's just be sure that no one else is using this name. Just to like that way you don't have to deal with any like issues and copyright, and also just the importance of like intellectual property. Like that's just another
exactly.
thing. Like people don't realize like there's a lot of people who are like scheming and lurking,
Mhm.
and if they
Mhm.
find something that's like juicy, they're like, yo, I'm taking that. If you got no protection, good luck
Exactly.
good luck trying to beat
Mhm.
that. Cause like, hey, listen, I will take everything you have and then some, and I will spin it to make it my own. Again, see, like that is why I was so worried about the safe room because I'm like, okay, I should probably trademark it, and that's why
Mhm.
anytime I make posts, you never see me put hashtag TSR because I know that's the shade room stuff, and I'm like, okay, if I put that and someone sees that, they'll be thinking like, yo, who is this fraud right here? What is this guy trying to come for the shade room? I'm like, listen, guys, like I want no smoke.
Yeah, that's actually smart because TSR, the shade room, the safe room. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You don't want to track that. That's smart. And I think so. Yeah, I'm in the process of talking to a lawyer right now. She's actually a business lawyer, black woman based in Toronto. Her name is Andrea Henry. Shout her out. All if you're creative and you're looking for protection, go on her page. She does a lot
Hey,
of like breakdowns and
there
stuff
we
like
go.
that, right? So that's really cool. And so I've been like in talks with sort of her office, and like we're gonna be talking more over the holidays about like the file and search and all that kind of stuff right now as to like which one makes sense for me to trademark first. Like, am I doing Canada first? Am I doing US? Am I doing one? And because yeah, that's especially like you can do the trademark on your own, but I know some people say it helps to have a lawyer do it because then you avoid certain mistakes and it's cleaner and all that kind of stuff. But
Right.
it's definitely a lot more money when you you have a lawyer doing it. So I think what I may end up doing is getting the initial support in terms of like give me all the information I need. I'll pay you for that consultant, and then I'll might just do the trademark, like finish the rest off on my own. Like I think I might have to take that route because wow, it's expensive. Like I'm talking like 1 to 2K depending on what you need if you're filing in multiple categories. Because when you start to file for like, okay, I want podcasts and I want it to also cover merch and I want it to cover music,
Right.
it's a couple more hundred to each category that you want to trademark to. So yeah,
It's a lot, and like
yeah.
I'm pretty sure with like intellectual property as well. Like, can't you be like commercialized for that? Like, receive like some income or some revenue from it? I'm not sure
Yeah, I'm not sure how that works, but yeah, I'll definitely look into that.
because like
Bec-
I've done research on that. I think it was like a project I did for a class. Shout out to my public policy class. Amazing course I'm taking at York University. I did some research on IP commercialization in the education sector, and
mm,
university researchers usually, when they're developing new technologies, new products, or ideas, the issue that they have is that they're not commercialized for their work. There's not really like
mm.
in a space set income of what they receive, or there's not even like processes that kind of outline these types of things. So like that's why I'm asking, like, does it just rely in the education sector, or is it like for anyone that's like dealing with intellectual
Right.
property?
I would hope it's anyone that's dealing with intellectual property. That's a good question. That's definitely a good question. I'm
Yeah,
gonna
like
I'm gonna
it
look
was
into that.
something that like I found curious. And again, I'm sorry if I actually thought you were officially trademarked. You're in the
Oh, no
process.
worries, no worries, no worries. That's okay, no problem. And that's honestly like I kind of like that.
It's like,
That's
yeah,
why I
you see
put
the
it.
name, eh? Put
Yeah,
some respect on me.
yeah. That's why I put it. So like, um, and like you can kind of tell the difference. So because I've been looking and researching into it too, and so if you go on Apple and you just sort of like type in trademark and that little symbol comes up, that's what I use. But I think if you're
Mm,
actually trademarked, it looks different. And I don't know
right.
how those people get to that. Like it like looks a little different. The TM is a little small. It has a circle around it. I'm like, oh, okay. So
Oh, yes.
they're,
Yes.
they're the serious one. So so I just put it to kind of like ward off scammers and people who are really trying to
And you know
who
what?
are have bad intentions
Good
while
on
I'm
you
doing
for
that
that. Good
process.
on you for
Yeah.
that. I've been thinking about it for a while, and you know
Mhm.
what? I might like take that step very soon.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
for people who want to do the same, again, like if you don't know that much, it's okay to meet with a consultant, to go over these things. And also, it takes time.
It
Like we
does.
filed a trademark for Black Ruins. I think it's still in stage two in terms of like trying to figure out
Yeah,
like
when
who's actually using it. So like don't expect this
exactly.
to be done in like a year or two, like maybe 5, close to a decade.
Yeah, that's what they were saying. Like when the first lawyer I talked to, he was like, "Yeah, from the moment that you file to when you can actually get your trademark, it could be 3 to 5 years." He was like, "Canada's just, especially Canada, they're just really slow. They don't have a lot of like people working there." I was like, "What?" But then for America, I think it's about 18 months from when you file that you can get it, right?
Mm,
Um, and I think that starts to make more sense. Is like, what market do you see yourself working more in, or is what market is a bit more aggressive? Like, what are the
yeah.
chances of people coming for your stuff in Canada versus America? So that's kind of what I'm like trying to do the math on right now to see which one makes more
I
sense.
think because if it's 18 months, they're like, let's get it done quicker because the American market is, and like
Yeah, it's saturated, it's booming,
And
it's full.
like the Canadian market, listen, man, I think we all know how the processes go, whether it's like,
Yeah.
application requests, IP or anything. It's just
Yep.
it's gonna be slow. So I mean, there's times you have to ramp at the same time. It's like, what are you gonna do?
Exactly. Exactly. So yeah, no, thank you for noticing that though. You're very observant. I appreciate it. And thank you for bringing that up. It definitely made for like a good discussion, and I hope that people listening can like take away from that too if they're trying
Yeah,
to
for
protect
for
anything.
sure. If you guys are hearing this, hey, this is like some dropping some gems, dropping some knowledge with Chid and Sean
Mhm.
right here.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, now let's get into like the main topic. So I asked all those questions because I did want to get your experience as a content creator.
Yeah.
And that's what this
Mhm.
conversation is about, given like the state right now and how technology is rapidly increasing and it doesn't seem like nothing's gonna stop. Everyone's kind of been
Mhm.
shifting on to like the online world. Being a
Mhm.
content creator is like, oh, maybe I'll try this out. Now, obviously, I feel like there's starting to be a problem because it's like being a content creator myself, I am seeing an immense amount of people doing this, and it's
Yeah.
like I have no problem in terms of that because like I'm not petty like oh my gosh I should be the only one like in my lane like why you try to steal my life. Listen, we can all get along together. My
Mhm.
problem is that they enter this type of I want to say this field or this market
Mhm. Mhm.
without actually understanding like how things work. It feels like, oh, I get like a free buy and just like, oh, I can do it and like it's cool. It's like, no, there's different levels to it. There's different types of groups. So like, for example, there's like the social influencers. There's just
Mhm.
those that just like I don't really have like a huge purpose or like anything that's gonna be impacting like communities or anything. It's just like I'm just there to like build an audience for myself. Maybe if I get paid from it, then like, hey, that's cool.
Mhm.
And then there's like the conversationalists. I kind of put like podcasters like you and
Mhm.
I, where
Yep.
we kind of have more of a bigger purpose in terms of like we want our conversations to kind of translate into community building,
Mhm.
leadership, sustainability as well.
Mhm.
And then there's also like the marketers as well, which is like it's kind of like on the more business technocratic
The
side of things.
coaches and stuff too.
Right, exactly. Like, hey, like, I see that you're doing something. I can help you out, whether it's like you can be part of this agency and we can work
Mhm.
together. So
Mhm.
there are like different things that are like in place, but I feel like my issue is that people don't take the time and the research to do so. And like that's what ticks me off. And it's like when I started doing podcasting, I was like, look, I'm a newbie. I don't know nothing. So like I'm gonna take things like slow and like really understand like how the game works and everything. And once I
Yep.
did, it's like I didn't become all humble, like, oh, I know everything. I was like, no, I've been doing this for over like a year now. and there's probably shit I still am like, what? I didn't know this. Or like, oh wow, this is new, and like that's okay. But I think it is the problem of like people just feel they can just step into this field and just like I can just make it, and it's like okay, but it's not.
Exactly. It's funny you said that. I was listening to another podcast, Toronto based. It's called Hustle Over Everything. They do like business.
Yes, Alex. Yo,
Mm-hmm.
oh, these guys, man, I love them. I love them.
Yeah, yeah, they're really good. They're really good. They're on it. They take their stuff seriously. Their guests are incredible.
Mm-hmm.
I look at them and I'm like, wow, yeah, yeah. But again, you can see that they've put in the work over time. They started, I think Owen started on that by himself in like 2017.
Yeah.
If you look at the sort of catalog on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, you can see like it started in 2017
Right.
and they're really now starting to like pick up steam, get recognition and stuff in 2021. So that's 4 years. So this is
Mm-hmm.
not like an overnight thing, right? But yeah, I was listening to it and I think it was Owen that was saying, like it just feels like the entry into podcasting is just really low. Like anyone can sort of enter, anyone can enter as a content creator. And like it's good and bad, right? Like
Yeah.
yes, it's good because like people like me who didn't go to school for media yet or for radio were able to research and understand how to get in this game, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was able to understand how to like buy equipment that wouldn't break my bank to start this project and to understand how to make money and whatever, right? But because I took it seriously, like you said, I did that research and now I'm here. But you're right that it also has the other side to it is that people who don't necessarily have a vision or are just like, man, let me just get this mic, man, get my homies, we go chop it up, chat shit, whatever. And then it becomes like that kind of thing too. So I feel like I don't know. I hate separation, segregation, whatever the word is, but there almost has to be like a demarcation of, these are the hobbyists that are doing this for fun. These are the
Mm-hmm.
people that are doing this for thought leadership, for conversations to drive a vision and a focus forward. Um, there might have to be some sort of a separation because I think you're right. Like the entry into this like content, especially podcasting, is just like, anyone can do it these days, right?
Right.
Like yeah, and the thing is with podcasting, it's still fairly new. Like if you compare the amount of YouTube videos that are out there versus podcasts, like podcasts is like 2 million podcasts, but YouTube videos are in like the hundreds of millions, if not billions by now,
Right.
right?
That's
So
such a
podcasting
strong
is,
point.
yeah, so podcasting is still fairly new. So we're still technically like in the early stages
All
of
right.
even
And
seeing
we're just coming out the incubator, guys.
exactly, yeah, right. So I think like I don't like I see podcasting as yes, like the entry is open to everyone, but it's still not saturated enough to where you can feel like you feel like, man, like here we go, another one's come in. So so yeah, but I think as long as you're able to like just show your audience that listen, this is serious for me, right? Like we're gonna have fun on this platform, we're gonna learn, I'm gonna be myself, but this is still serious to me. This is not just a hobbyist kind of thing. That I
Mm.
think you'll be able to like stand out.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? That last point, if it's like
Mm-hmm.
serious to the individual doing it, then like yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
think that really stands out. Even for like for example, like the influencers, I feel like people join this not to be like, hey, like I have this platform, even though we're just gonna have fun. It's kind of serious to me. It's like you may be doing it because like yo, I want to be like as big as this person. I want to be big
Mm-hmm.
as that person, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like now it becomes from like oh, it's your happiness and your passion to now it's like competition and envy.
Exactly. And that's the hard thing about content is a lot of people, especially back when it was even harder to figure out how the money was going to come and all that stuff. Everyone was, passion, creativity, like let's make YouTube videos, let's teach some girls how to do makeup, let's, share my outfits on Instagram, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as there was that increase in the creator economy and people started figuring out, okay, you can make money off of this enough to live. I think it's just human instincts to now be like, okay, well, shit, how can I eat too? You know what I mean? So I think that we kind of have to be aware and balance it out. Like, yes, money will come. Yes, it's important that you're compensated for your work. Like, I believe so strongly in that. And that's something that I really do reflect on and crack my head every day. Like, bro, like, like how can podcasters make money, like other than ads, other than begging people on Patreon, like is there a network that will pay you, like, you know what I mean? So I do think about it a lot because what we're doing is work, right?
Mm,
But I think you still have to like maintain that passionate side of it for yourself so that you're also still enjoying it, right? Like a lot of the times this is a creative outlet from your 9 to 5. So you don't want this to then turn into what your 9 to 5 is, right? Like
mm-hmm.
very rigorous, onerous, you don't like it, you know, you're becoming less creative with it. So I think there just has to be a balance of like focusing on your long-term vision but still just like taking it step by step, step by step. And for the people who just want to go out there and be fashion or beauty influencers without putting in the work, but you want a discount code after like posting two pretty little thin pictures, we see you.
Listen. Capitalism is a bitch. Okay.
Mhm.
Listen.
Mhm.
This is coming from a
Yep.
bit. This is coming from a business major. Okay. The level of mass consumption is because that capitalism is so present in these
Mhm.
situations. Like when people start seeing like, oh, I can do this and make money off of it. That is just self interest kicking in. Like, yo, like I'm gonna be doing this. I don't care if like I don't care if people even like what I have to say. Like, listen, if I'm getting my bread, if I'm in my bag, then like, hey, that's it. That's how it's gonna be. And again, the market plays in a way where like, oh, those people who like, who are popping, it's like, oh, they have a good platform. But really, it's like they're chasing the money, and because your
Mhm.
algorithm fits the money, and like, oh, they're profiting. Like, okay, we're gonna push those. Why do you think like it's creators like us? It's like we care about money, but not in the sense of like that's all I want to get.
Yeah.
I wanna, like,
Yeah.
be able to, like, say, "I'm doing my work because 'cause I'm happy, I'm
Mhm.
having an impact, but I can also get compensated for it."
Exactly.
But other
Exactly.
people are just kinda like, "Oh, no, I'm chasing the bread." And that's why
Yeah.
if you go on Apple Podcasts or any other platform, that's why you see those pages or those videos in the top feed. Because like,
Mhm.
they're the people who are like, "Listen, man, like, it's not really a big deal for me to, like, talk about these bigger issues." That's the influencers
Mhm.
or maybe, like, the conversationalists like us. It's like, we have so much other things that we wanna do as a whole in terms of, like,
Yeah.
make an impact. We wanna be compensated for our work. We have purpose for the stuff that we're doing.
Mhm.
So because of that,
Absolutely.
it's like you mentioned, hustle over everything. It took them 4 years. Four
Yeah.
years to get put on the map. It's because of the simple fact that we weren't trying to chase a quick buck. Because
Mhm.
that was never like the main goal for us at the time.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think it's really important about like, just if you're happy doing it, then like I think that's what really is the just
The
like
driver.
the perfect bow that
Mhm.
wraps up. It's like, okay, I know what I'm doing is good
Yeah.
because it's making me happy. Now for the
And I
simple fact.
think my mom, like when I even talked to her about this, I think sometimes it's hard to explain this to like Generation X, like our parents, especially like I'm African. So having to explain to my parents, like, yes, like, you know, because sometimes when you start something, you're like, okay, when's the money coming? Or like, how can like, when we getting paid? And you have to kind of explain to them, like, it takes time. Like, this is a creative field. This is not just a 9 to 5 where you know, you clock in and you clock out, or you sign in, you sign out. Like, this stuff takes time. And you have to first build your brand, build your voice, get your audience to trust your voice before you start to sell them something, right? Like, I just don't understand how people like, and that's why I say like not everyone should be an entrepreneur. Like I understand that entrepreneur is a wave right now, but you can't just come and start trying to sell me a t-shirt or a pen. I don't know you. I don't know what value that t-shirt or pen brings to me. But you want to start a whole Instagram page. I want to sell pens. Like this is what
Yo,
I
I
think.
want this, I want that. You want Mark to
Yeah.
make big bucks. But first of all, I need to ask you something. What is your name?
Yeah.
Who are you? What do you do? You're trying to throw shit in my face, and it's just like, bro, like, I don't
Yeah.
know you like that. See, that's why, like, even to this day, for me being like here for over a year, and I have a pretty like very well established audience, I have
Mhm.
not even pondered about
Mhm.
selling merch because
Mhm.
I'm like, listen, like, I am not there yet. And number two, like, even though it's just like it's difficult because now it becomes the sense of like, okay, when I'm doing these things, are people really paying attention to the stuff I'm saying? Because like it's very easy to get blinded by like a like or like a retweet or
Yeah.
something like that. It's like, oh yeah,
Mhm.
I like this. But are you liking it because like you're kind of commenting, going down your feed and liking things that like pop your eye, or it's like are you actually
Right. Are you
listening to what
actually
I'm
paying
saying?
attention? Are you actually clicking that audiogram? Are you actually, you know what I mean? And you're absolutely right. Is like also learning, like, okay, my okay, this person is clicking here, I'm getting some feedback, I'm getting some reception, because sometimes I think with YouTube it's easier to see like your audience feedback, your audience take on things, because it's the comment section. YouTube's algorithm just allows you to receive, like, for people to be that connected. But
Mm-hmm.
with podcasting, it's more of a passive medium. So like, yeah, I'm seeing that you people, like, you guys are listening, like people are listening, but then I may not get that like feedback that I'm looking for, because people
Mm.
don't engage with podcast content the same that they engage with fashion content or with mental health content on Instagram. Like if you go on Instagram, maybe an educational podcast talking about, entrepreneurship, business, and women empowerment, whatever, will get likes, but maybe like 3 4 comments, but people might go and listen. But
Right.
then maybe if you have like fashion influencer, everyone on there saying, love this outfit, love this outfit, but maybe only 10 people are going and actually buying it with your discount code. So you also have to be mindful, like engagement does not look the same for every like type of content creator. You know what I mean? Because
Right.
I've been peeping that. Like I've been looking at it, I'm like, okay, I noticed that like even with like my podcast, your podcast, Hustle of Everything, you may not be seeing like 50 comments under there, even if they have like 1,000 followers or a couple hundred followers. Like you may see like maybe 10, maybe 15 on a good post, a couple of likes, because Instagram also isn't pushing posts as much as they're pushing reels
Right.
and stuff now, right? But people engage differently. If you're, especially now that you can add links on stories, people will click your link and listen, and they'll listen, but they may not come and comment on your Instagram post and tell you how great of an episode it was. It's more of a passive like medium, I find.
Right, right. The insights, you see on like social media platforms, it's like they differ,
Yeah,
sometimes like,
absolutely.
it may not tell you the whole story. Cause like, listen, people think that we don't know what's happening, but I won't lie, because of these insights, we do see a lot of stuff. There's like little stats of like how long this person even saw this post for. Like, did they watch it for the first five
Right.
seconds? Did they watch the entire thing?
Right.
And this is coming from someone like I am not even like huge about like, oh, I want all the views and all the likes and everything. Because like, here's a little story. So I actually used to like post full out recordings on YouTube on my
Mm-hmm.
channel because I thought, hey, maybe this would be a great way. Because like, listen, I never used YouTube before. I'm like, hey, maybe I could use this for my platform. I kid you not. There were times I wouldn't even get like a single view in a week.
Yeah,
And,
because YouTube's algorithm is also weird. I actually recently did that. I recently made a YouTube channel for the podcast. I posted one like audio recording, one episode about an hour long. I think I got like 3 4 views on it. So I think it depends on what your audience is. Like I feel like I've already gotten my audience used to Apple, Spotify, Google. Like it's just an
mm-hmm,
audio experience, and I'll give you like little snippets of like video reels here and there. But this is an audio experience. So I think because of that, you now have to like work harder to introduce them to a new platform, especially like YouTube. So,
yeah, for
yeah.
sure. And like sometimes, you don't want to fall in that realm where like you're so hyped about, oh, I need to have like the highest amount of likes and views where it affects your mental health. Because like
Yeah.
it's already a law for a content creator where it's like, I have to like put in the work. It's more than just like turn on your camera and saying something or like going
Mhm.
on a mic and speaking a subject matter. Like there's more to it. It's like the editing process. There's uploading posts, the social media marketing. And
Yep.
like you don't want to add more pressure to it where it's like, ah, dang, man, like no one saw anything on my story, or oh man, I only have like under 10 likes in one day. It's like, don't you can't have those
Yeah.
standards for yourself because now it's just like you're stigmatizing like all this depression, and it's like it's terrible for you.
Exactly. Exactly. That's one thing I really made an effort is, first of all, I disabled notifications for Instagram, so I don't get notifications now when people are liking or seeing stuff, because it like keeps hitting your dopamine. Like it just, you feel good every time you get a like, and then you're anticipating it. So when you don't get it, you're like, oh man, they're not really fucking with me today. Like, what's up? So I turn that off. Like I turn it off. So when I check it like a couple of times a day, I'll go, especially like if I post, I'll go on and be like, okay, yeah, people are pouring in. If people comment, I'll respond, and then I'm off of it again. That way it just helps me to like not lean into like anticipating likes, anticipating comments, anticipating this. Um and then two is, I go through periods sometimes where like I don't check on my analytics for my listenership. I don't check it as heavy. So, and I'm doing that right now. So the last
Mm,
few episodes I've put out, I've purposely not looked at it. I'm still putting the same amount of effort. I'm promoting. I'm, doing what I need to do. I'm also trying to find other ways to promote outside of social marketing. I hear that having a website is a good one because of
Oh,
SEO,
yeah, same. I
right?
do have a website, so like I that's a definitely a great way. Right now, it's like I'm kind of like inactive with it because again, I have a lot of stuff, but I do have like plans for it once I'm done school. Hopefully, I'm done in the
Hmm.
next couple of months. But
Yeah, that would be great. And I think, yeah, so like I still do what I need to do in terms of marketing, but I'm not like, okay, oh, like this many people listen today. Oh, okay. Compare it into like the previous podcast and this one. And like because podcast like it's ongoing, right? Like people find and people listen and it's ongoing and ongoing. So what I'll do is maybe like once in like a month or so, like at the end of the year now, once I put up my last episode, I'll now like do a review and kind of understand like what people why people listen to some episodes more and stuff like that too, right? So
right.
I try not to like be too fixated on the numbers. I know that numbers are what gets you money and the sponsorships, but you can't kill yourself, bro. So
And you know it's funny because we've been talking about how like it does affect your mental health, but there's also moments where like there's positive where you actually realize that oh dang like I actually do have an audience.
yeah.
There's like moments where like okay we're so stressed upon the likes and the views for our mental health. There's moments where like oh snap like I didn't realize that I do have an audience and people are listening to me. Like I kid you not, I think it was like a couple weeks back. I was walking down the street and I ran into a couple of friends and they're like the first thing they said to me like it was like hey Sean yo bro like when's the next episode coming out? And I'm like are
Right.
you listen? He's like, yeah, man, for sure. I'm like, yo, like that's great. And like there's even times where like people are like, yo, bro, like I support the stuff that you're doing, man. I listen to all your episodes. And I think what's it? I had a friend who I met yesterday and she's super busy. Like she's a person
Mhm.
that's always 24/7. But when she told me, so I think everyone's aware about the Spotify Wrapped, at the end of the
Yeah, yeah,
year
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
everything.
exactly, exactly, yeah.
And when she told me she had my podcast in her top five, like I almost like cry because I'm like, bro, like I'm not even like fixated on that, but like when I hear stuff like that, it's like it's a great feeling because it's like okay, I know I'm doing something right.
Mhm.
It's just
Mhm.
like
Exactly.
it knows that like okay, you know what? I really am not just coming on here and saying a bunch of bullshit. Like people are
Exactly.
actually hearing what I'm saying. They're
Exactly.
hearing my guests' stories, their experience, what the conversation is about,
Yeah,
and
and you have good guests too. Like I was just listening and even looking through like your Instagram page and stuff. Like the guests are like they're credible, they're cool, like just yeah, no, like absolutely. Like and I think sometimes you don't notice it until like maybe you don't post something for a couple of like weeks or something and else one person's like, "Oh, like you still doing this?" You're like, "Oh, so you guys do miss me, huh?" Well,
it's like you only miss me when I'm gone, eh?
exactly. Like, tell me you like me when I'm actually posting, when I'm
Yes,
actually doing
man.
my
Give
stuff,
me my roses before I go away.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. But yeah, man, it's a grind, and you just gotta sort of enjoy the process as sort
It's
of like as basic as that sounds. And a lot of people are like enjoy the process, enjoy the process. You generally have to because I don't know, like how can you even make it to the end if you're not enjoying the process, like
you
So
can't make it to the end if you're not happy
yeah,
what you started with.
yeah, yeah,
So, like,
exactly.
absolutely. But yeah, so that's kind of like just the conversation as a whole. But I also wrote down this one thing, and I'm honestly now
Mm-hmm.
regretting that I wrote it because I wrote this a couple weeks back, and now I think because of like my schedule, I kind of forgot why I wrote it. But
Yeah,
we're still gonna tackle it. So
yeah.
I think I mentioned to you the content creator community CCC. I just kind of like
Mm-hmm.
to make an acronym for it, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I justify that sometimes we, not you and me, like just us, but like
Yeah.
everyone are the problem for like the amount of content creators that are happening today.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what I was trying to say on that, it's not that oh we we don't have a voice and like oh we can't speak up. It's like no, it's not that. I think it's the fact that because there's so many different varieties of content creators
Mm-hmm.
and maybe some of us are not able to detect that immediately, that anytime we see someone doing this it's just like oh my god like this is so like meaningless, like you're not making an impact, you're not doing this and that. And like we were just
Mm.
talking about this, but it also made me realize like I really don't know jack shit about what someone else is trying to do. If they are really trying to do this for fun, then who am I to really judge what they want to share with their audience?
Exactly. And that's why even what I said earlier about like, differentiating like the serious and like the more hobbyists or the people that don't really have a vision for that too, even as much as I say that, then the other side of me is like, bro, like who cares? Like at the end of the day, if they're really busy with life and then like they just want to come and talk about that kind of stuff to like just have fun with your friends, let them. There's a space for you on the internet for that, right? Um, as long as that's what you want to do it. People like you will sort of the content that you put out, the people will come. If you
Yeah.
sort of putting out content and it's like it's more relaxed, it's people are this is just the chill thing for you. People who really just want something to just listen to on the chill, like just to relax, we'll find them. Like I have podcasts that I listen to that, yo, if you knew I was listening to them, you'd be like, oh shit, you listen to that? Like, yeah, because sometimes I just need something that is absolutely bullshit
I
that I
need
can
some
just
relaxation. Listen, I got
exactly,
Return of the
exactly.
Mac podcast,
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
Breakdown
yeah.
podcast. I think everyone knows about the Random Order podcast. I mean, for y'all
Yes,
entertainment, like,
exactly,
come on now.
exactly,
It's like I need those
exactly,
in my life.
exactly. So sometimes you just need that, and then even like I try to carve my podcast around that too. Is like I still want that enjoyment factor, even as I'm tackling maybe a more serious conversation too, right? Because I'm both. Like it can be a serious side of me, it can be a goofy side of me. So I really wanted to have both of those in my podcast and not just it be like this, like, okay, today everyone, we're gonna be tackling this issue of business economics. Like, no.
Yes,
So
we're going to talk about corporate social responsibility. We're also going to talk about the firm and organization and its organizational structure. It's like, look,
yeah,
bro, not every podcast needs to have a significant amount of like, oh, like impact
big
or change.
words. Big words, bro. Two guests
Big
and I
words. You're throwing stuff about like inflation, all this stuff,
yeah.
like equilibrium. It's like, bro, I'm already university. I don't need this again
You
in
know what I'm
this setting.
saying?
Like, if you want to
And
just talk about like, yo, did you hear about like this? Yo, the celebrities, this couple they broke up. Oh, did you hear about this and that? Like, yes, yes,
yeah,
because
yeah.
we
Talk about
need
it.
that.
Yeah, yeah. So that's why, like, even sometimes, even though sometimes I get annoyed because I'm like, man, y'all keep talking about this. What do you bring to the table? Dating? Who should pay for the first date? I get annoyed because it feels like it's just what I'm seeing a lot. But honestly, I'm like, man, talk about it. If that's what you guys want to talk about, trust me, that's important, and
And
it serves its purpose too.
right,
So do it.
that's what I appreciate about you as well. Like, you don't try to make it just like,
Mm-hmm.
serious conversations all the time. You like to have, very open conversations. I think it was the one episode, I don't know, it was like the ladies' night out episode.
Yes, that was me and my
That
friend, and we're
was
celebrating my birthday. And yeah, ladies' night episode, we talked
that
about
was hilarious, and I was like,
yes,
wow, like this is what you need. Because like even
yeah,
sometimes for my podcast, I say some like stupid stuff or I talk about some stupid shit. Like sometimes I talk about music. I think
yeah.
I've had a couple episodes where I talked about like the BT Awards in terms of like reviewing
Yes,
them,
breaking that down. Yeah,
right?
yeah. I listened
Even
to that.
like
Yeah.
even like Disney Channel shows, like in movies in the past, like this like the era of like Disney shows kind of like
Mm-hmm.
diminished at this point. Because I remember, listen, 2000 like Disney shows and movies were hitting different,
Yeah, yeah. They really were. They
hitting
were hitting
different.
different. So yeah, no, that's why I'm like, yo, honestly, make the content that you want. Do it for your happiness. Do it for your leisure. I truly am like keeping a pulse on, especially podcasting. I can't know everything about all the different types of content, but I'm keeping a pulse on podcasting because I really feel like there will be more ways to make money for us in the future. Like I know
Right,
like YouTube is really like YouTube ads was how a lot of like influencers were making their money. I think podcast is like podcast ads. But what makes podcasts really hard is like to be able to go to a sponsor or like a brand and say, hey, like can I run an ad? I think the figure, like the number they wanted you to have was 1,000 listens per
per down, yeah, per
episode.
episode, per download.
Yeah, that's a lot, bro. Like, do you know how hard it is to
Bro,
scale?
I'm
Because
not even touching 20 on a week.
yeah,
like, like, come on now. Can we shorten up the criteria?
that's what I'm saying. 1,000 on 1,000 an episode. That's a
Hey,
lot. Like, it's a
bro.
lot. Like, even like people that get to the hundreds, and you're like, okay, great. Like,
Bro,
I'm in the hundred.
unless you're the Breakfast Club with Joe Budden and Charlemagne and
That's
like them, it's like,
yeah.
bro, come on now.
It's hard because whereas YouTube, I think YouTube's algorithm is like if you're consistent, it kind of like keeps recommend in YouTube. Like you could be in a rabbit hole on YouTube. Once you just use the right hashtags and you could type in
Right.
like black girl makeup and it'll keep recommending stuff to you based on
Mm-hmm.
hashtags. Podcast is not like that. If I don't know the name of your podcast, I can't find it because I need to know the name of your podcast to search it in Spotify and Apple.
Right.
You know what I mean? So discoverability is really hard for us. But I know, like, I feel like there are a lot of people on this tech side of podcasts that are sitting there like trying to figure out how to make stuff more discoverable. So once discoverability is kind of like figured out and your content is good, I think like you'll be able to get more of an audience too.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, like
Yeah.
no, even I think another thing for YouTube as well, I think it's like they recommend that you have like videos that are like over 10 minutes because like if you do want to get compensated, like that's how it works. That's why like I'd be watching like maybe reaction videos. And like sometimes the YouTuber would literally like say it right in there and they wouldn't even cut it out. They're like, yo, I gotta keep talking because like I need to get over 10 minutes because I need to get paid. Like I find it hilarious to this.
Yo. That's wild. That's funny.
Yeah, so
But
like that
yeah, man.
that's what I was kind of saying in terms of like I feel
Mhm.
like we're the problem, and it's not to say it's something you should put shame on. I think it's more
Mhm.
of recognition. It's like you know what, like I can't be like this person that's trying to like innovate change, but also direct who is like doing what and how the change should come. Like I
Mhm.
shouldn't be that type of person. Cause like, hey, you know what? If you want to talk a bunch of foolishness, hey, that's cool. As long as it's making you happy. You want to be more serious, that's cool. But like, don't try to like put on an act where it's like, you're trying
Yeah.
to be something that you're not. Cause like that was something I was trying
Exactly.
to avoid. I'm like, listen. Cause here's the thing, and I'll be honest, cause I'm a very brutal, honest person. When I was listening to your episodes, I was like, bro, I feel like shit right now because I'm like, yo, shit, it sounds like so professional, like she's killing it, and
Yeah,
like there
but
was a
then
moment I told myself like, yo, what if I like do this and that, but then I had to like bring back myself down to reality. I'm like,
yeah.
no, like
Yeah.
listen, she's doing her
Because
thing, she's killing it. I'll do my thing, and I'm
you're
killing it.
killing it. Because even when I listen to you too, I think I listen to Hustle for Everything. I'm like, man, the way that they do this and ask these questions, like they're doing great. Even with your episode, I'm like, oh my god, I liked this guest that he had, and even the way that he like you had your ad and I'm like, first of all, he has an ad. I gotta like you had an ad for this brand. I can't remember. It was really cool. I can't remember what the brand
Well,
was.
like I've been moving a couple things, so I'm like a
Wow.
brand
A
ambassador
couple of
for Live Life
things.
apparel. So
Yes, it was that one. So then I'm like, wow, yo, Sean's out here reading this ad. And I was like, okay, well, let me go send an email to a couple of these brands real quick. And then after that, I was like, you know what? Like your time will come. Your time will come. Like, don't worry. So I feel like, no, you're absolutely right. And even like in the professional me, that's something that I struggled with. Like, this is kind of how I talk. Like I'll be professional and then I'll use slang. I'll be like, yo, like your girl's out here. But then I'll still, articulate myself or whatever, right?
right.
But I was very self-conscious of that because I was like, yo, like, am I gonna be put in a box? Like a lot of the podcasts that are getting big, like they're talking about more like pop culture stuff and you're using a lot of slang and da 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 da. So that was something that like I was very self-conscious about. I was like,
Hmm.
especially being like black, I'm like, think the kids are not gonna find me cool, like,
Oh
you
man,
know.
it's the
So
worst feeling where they figure out like there's a black host and they can't connect to the type of feelings and emotions that you express as like the listener. It's like, oh, this dude sounds lame. Like he looked like he came from like the whitest place in Toronto. Like, are you from
yeah,
Richmond or something? It's like, bro, I live right on Jada Wilson. It's just
yeah,
like we
I
listen.
just don't, like
Like,
we're
listen,
not a
I don't
monolith,
even be
my
talking like
guy.
a road man like that. I'm like, yo, like tutus, bro. I'm about to link up at this place. I'm not like that.
Yeah, like that's what I'm saying. I'll definitely use my slang. I'm funny as hell, I promise you. But it will not be like that for the whole episode because I still want to get to a point. Like I want my listener to listen and to think. I want to
Right.
challenge you a little bit, right? So that was something I struggled. I called up my friend. I was like, yo, do you guys want me to start talking about, my dating experiences more often? And like, like y'all want me to start talking about who's doing what to who
Oh
and who's stealing who's
man.
man to get more downloads? Like I'll do it, and then I have to catch myself and be
Yo.
like, no, like that's not you, like,
And everyone has fallen that trap. I think I did an episode titled "Why I Am Not in a Relationship." I don't even express stuff like this, but I literally took
Yeah,
like 30 minutes to express my heart, like felt so about like, listen, guys, like I had a thing for this one person, and
yeah,
like I've had like it's not that I don't want to get a relationship. It's just like I have other things in the
Going,
back of
yeah,
my
you're that you're
mind.
focusing on right now.
And
Yeah,
like
yeah.
even like when I finished that episode, I was like, why did I sit here and talk about this? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, exactly. And like even I'm being cautious because low key I'm trying to train my audience to also know what to like kind of expect from me and to know that like I'm gonna cover every topic. I'll cover any topic. I'm gonna do it in a way that feels like me. But what I'm also trying to avoid is people expecting me to share a lot about my life because I'm still I don't like the thing with content creation is it makes people then feel like they know you so that they can come and start talking to any type of way. And like
right.
you don't, right? So that's why like when I have those episodes where like I shared like my dating story with ladies night and it was my birthday, like I would like to give you guys some of that. I had one of my friends Simi and we talked about like dating in a pandemic, and I literally just worked on an episode for Valentine's Day on like relationship, like dating, love bombing, all that kind of stuff, like compatibility. We're still gonna like I'm still gonna give you content, but we're gonna laugh, all that kind of stuff. But one thing I'm conscious of is you can't be doing a podcast where you're talking about like relationships and all that stuff all the time and not share your experiences consistently. That's why I
Mm-hmm.
can't do it because you can't be having a relationship podcast and not share about your experiences. And I'm not gonna
Yeah.
lie to you, I'm not really open with sharing all my relationship experiences on a podcast that's gonna live on the internet. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Privacy and
So
consent is it matters.
exactly. So you also have to take that into consideration. Is if you're gonna be put yourself in a certain lane, people are going to expect that from you. So I'm already kind of like, testing the waters with that and just letting my audience know, like, yeah, you guys will get snippets and stuff of like relationship here. We'll talk about sexual health here. We'll talk about this. Like, we'll cover everything. But I'm not going to do it in a way where I'm sitting here and I'm not telling you guys all the men I've dated, da 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 da. That's not, like, because I don't
Right.
want that. Then that also starts to put me like, I have to continuously give you guys that. And like, nah,
And
man,
it
I
comes
have
to
a
a
life
point
to
where
live.
like, there's gonna be those huge critics where it's like, oh, like you sound the
Exactly.
same like you did in that previous episode. Well, I
Yeah.
it's limited. You're telling me to speak on one thing. I can
Yeah,
only go so much. Now it feels like, oh, I have to
exactly.
make up a memory that never even happened, or like it kind of happened, but like it
Exactly.
didn't.
I'm blowing it up. Now I'm telling you that like three people came up to me when it was really just one. Like, you know what I mean? Like I don't want to be put in a situation like that where I'm trying to like hype up stuff for views. So I'm like, nah,
Right. So no,
man.
I totally agree. And like that's something I'm trying to do with my podcast. Like at first, like the first thing I actually wanted to talk about was music. Cause like I love music. I love like
Yeah, I
listening to
love
albums
music.
and songs and like giving my personal take. But like
Mhm.
number one, I'm like, you know what? I am not really like a full on like music listener. Like I'm not gonna pay attention for every single song or album that drops. And
Right,
like number
right.
two, it's like once I start like doing like reviews and stuff, I could legit see people coming back to me like, "Oh, you said this about here, but then it's like you said another thing about here. It's like you're contradicting yourself." And it's just like I don't want to put
Mm,
myself in the hole. So like that's why I have like a multitude of stuff I have, but it's still under like one mandate of like what I'm trying to push. Like
exactly,
one thing I started
exactly.
like recently was like having more podcasts like on my podcast. Like, so I've had a couple of people, I've had the Let's Talk Big Things podcast. They're
Yes, I
amazing.
like them. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yep,
Yes,
love them too.
you today. I've had a couple as well. Life on Hi-Fi. I even
Mm.
had like a friend that I went to high school. He has this podcast called Time Out with the Crew. I'm trying to
Okay.
like, I'm trying to connect with these people more because it's like, you know what? Like, I love listening to conversations. I love having conversations. I love to talk. So I feel
Mhm.
like I should connect with these same people who love the same passion as me. Just have these conversations and talk.
Exactly, exactly. And I like that. Absolutely. And even like what we just did now, like, we're giving you content, we're giving you value, you're going to laugh a little, you're going to be edutained, you're going to get your education, you're going to laugh. Like this is I feel like the wave that we're on. So like honestly, yeah, like if you're a content creator and you're thinking like, man, like what do I got to do for the views? Like don't think like that. Just think about like what you want to do, what you feel happiest making, what you feel will bring value to your listenership, your audience, and then go from there, and your community will like gradually be morphed around you, right? But don't go in trying to be like, oh, like okay, this podcast did this and like they have like 10,000 views, like okay, let me go do that too. No, because what worked for them may not work for you. So
Right.
yeah, that's it.
Right.
That's it.
There'll always be your time, and I know we kind of skipped over it, but I do want to go back to it. The
Mm-hmm.
marketers in terms of like the different type of content creators, like that's an example. Like you'll find your time where like people kind of appreciate the value that you're bringing, and they're like, hey, I want to connect with you. Hey, I want to do this and that. I think it was like a couple months ago. A consulting agency reached out to me. And it's like, hey, like we want you to have one of our team members on your podcast, and like that
Mm-hmm.
was the first time that ever happened. And like you know me, like anytime I see any random messages, I'm like,
Is
please
this
state your
spam? Is this
name, your
real?
dates, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
So like when I saw that and they broke it down, I was like, holy shit, I'm actually getting
Yeah, people actually
recognized.
finding you. Yeah, yeah. People are actually finding you. Yeah, I had a PR team reach out to me for someone in Atlanta. I was like, "Oh,
Oh wow.
yeah." I was like, "Damn, okay." So
Yeah.
people find you like through hashtags, through things like people will find you. It's just, just keep at the work. Like trust me, people know you when you don't even know that they know you. So,
Right. So
yeah,
I
just keep
think
at
the
it.
moral of the story today, guys, is that content creators and just the overall life and experience, it's not easy. And like we don't
Yeah.
try to say this to be like nagging or like, oh, you guys are just bitter. It's like no,
Mhm.
because we're here, Shit and I are here telling you this from experience. And we're hoping
Mhm.
that our experience could at least pass some knowledge that like, hey, you know what? If I was like hesitant because, I heard talks about people saying like, oh, it's not that hard, or some people say no, it is hard. It's like you've heard both perspectives.
Exactly.
We told
Exactly.
you how like what, at some point it's like it's kind of easy to get into because we are a welcoming environment. We're not investigating everyone's like okay, like what you're gonna do, like how do you expect to blow up in this amount of time? Like no, it's like you want to have a platform to share whatever you have on your mind, do so, but it's also like don't come in here expecting like you're gonna be the world and everything. No, it's like we're here to build together, so let's build together. And I think that's what's important. At the end of the day, it's like it's easy to like get into, but it's also hard, and you have to put in the work. And if you do, you will reap the benefits.
Exactly. You reap the benefits. Absolutely. You said it all.
Absolutely, yeah. Like guys, like I don't know what more I have to say. Like that.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. Okay.
That's it. That's it. That's it, man. Put in the work. Make sure you have that passion for it. Do what feels good to you. Your gut, just your only competition is your past self, just wanting to better yourself, and you want to see reap the benefits. Like I believe it. I just don't think that hard work is gonna be in vain. Like trust me, something will come of it. Something will come of it.
Look,
So
guys,
yeah.
honestly, like at the end of 2020, just to share a little last story before we wrap up, I
Hmm.
was like in the worst state because like I was so busy with classes and like my job as a community research coordinator. And it was at the point like, okay, I can't do the podcast at the time because I was like
Yeah.
super busy and hectic. But it was some kind of like realization that actually what I needed more in that moment was my podcast, a place to kind
Yeah.
of like open up my feelings and also just have
Mhm.
these conversations. Because when I actually stepped away, I actually felt more stressed. And I was like, what
Mm.
is going on? And then like I remember I was looking at this mic in my room and I thought to myself, I need to come back. I just need
Mhm.
to come back. And, once I did, it was like, honestly, I remember the day vividly too. It was April 9th. I came back. Listen, that's how it came to me, right? And when I
I love
recorded,
that.
I think I had Randall as a guest, Randall J. And
Mm.
I remember after finishing, I was like, yeah, I'm back. I'm
I'm
back.
back. It's my time. Yeah.
This is my time. And like this has been like just like a prosperous year overall ever since then. I've done so much. I've launched a website. I've done so
Mhm.
many like episodes. I had my 50th episode. Um
Yeah, congrats on that. I saw that. I was like, wow, good job. Like,
yeah, so like again, it's all those trials and tribulations that are always going to lead to like the success in the
mhm.
stuff that you do. And again,
Mhm.
it's going to take a while, but if you love something that much, you're willing to wait for it at the end of the tunnel.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me. Like, this has been such a great conversation. Just like keep at it. Good. Like, honestly, I just, oh, I love seeing people like reach out. I love because I'm also being intentful. Like, I'm also trying to sort of like build community of podcasters and we sort of like help each other out. I'm trying to see like if there's a way that we can organize some sort of like black podcast event, a black podcasters like meetup or something, because
Hey,
you know what I mean. So
I
I've
I,
been thinking about
I
that.
have that in mind and like
Yeah,
what's it?
we'll talk, we'll
Listen,
definitely chat
all I have
because
to say guys, once I'm done school, that's in the motion. Don't worry.
yeah.
Like I have ideas,
Mm-hmm.
but once I am done, in April 2022, it will be
Yes.
in the motion.
Amen. All right, I'm with you. Yeah, like some sort of like get together. I know a lot of Toronto podcasts are also starting to do like they want to now do like live shows as another way to like not just
Right.
make money but to also see people. So like that's a thing that a lot of people are gunning for 2022. So like, I'm just so happy like a lot of podcasters are feeling really encouraged. It's going to be our time soon, guys. Like I know Canada, the infrastructure is not as much as the States, but I think we are the infrastructure. Like if we don't do it, then we're gonna keep complaining about how there's not enough, there's not resources. So,
Yeah.
the more that we do, we'll be able to increase our market and our overall infrastructure as well. So, nah, man, I'm excited.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm
I'm excited.
excited
Thank you so
too.
much for having me. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you, Chid. Thank you for being on here on the Safe Room. Where can they find you?
Yes. So if you all want to connect with me and connect with my work, the podcast is at BWDIK Podcast on Instagram and Twitter. If you want to connect with me, just myself personally, it's at Chid Suzan ChidSuzan at Twitter and Instagram. And yeah, we can connect, podcasting if you want to be a guest, all that good stuff. And yeah, we'll go from there. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for having me, man.
To everyone
Appreciate
listening,
it.
go check out her podcast. I'm telling you, it's a treat. It's a delight. Honestly, I can't wait
Thank
for
you,
the
man. I
next
appreciate it.
episode.
Yeah, coming real soon. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you guys for listening. Make sure you follow me on Instagram at the Safe Room Podcast. And again, I'm gonna keep saying it because until the wheels fall off, go check out my song for
Yes.
the official soundtrack for
Listen,
the
I
song.
like it. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate. Honestly, like I don't know how everyone was gonna feel about it. I'm like, are people gonna like enjoy it or shit? It's just like, it's like a
Yeah.
1-2.
And especially when you're an artist, you're sensitive about your shit. So you're like, you better like it. Like, yeah. No, but
Absolutely. But
check out
thank
his
you
song,
guys.
y'all.
Thank you guys.